as the Pac-12 sues. Yes, indeed. As we reported first and exclusively on the Monty Show yesterday, Oregon State and Washington State were preparing for a fight, and today that fight was brought to a courtroom as Oregon State and Washington State are asking for a temporary restraining order against the other 10 members of the Pac-12 who are looking to take as much money out of the conference as possible. We detailed this on the show for you yesterday, and essentially what this comes down to is who gets to control the cash and the assets remaining once July 1st, 2024 arrives in the Pac-12. Well, this comes down to a couple of things. Where are you positioned? Do you believe that the Pac-12 still exists on July 1st if it's only Oregon State and Washington State? That is a huge question. In their documents, in the charter, I am told by sources close to the conference, in the charter, it is said that remaining members, there is no designation for how many remaining members, but the remaining members of the conference are entitled to the cash and assets in the conference. We are also told they are entitled to the NCAA tournament shares that will go on for the next 6 years. Those two are Washington State and Oregon State. However, this move today in court was designed to do one thing: cut the legs out from the other 10 members in the conference. And again, I struggled to say it out loud yesterday, but it's pretty easy to say. I agree with Kirk Schultz, the president at Washington State, in his position that when UCLA and USC announced their move to the Big Ten, they were instantly removed from the Pac-12 Board of Directors. Why have the other 8 members who have announced their intention to leave the conference not been removed from the Board of Directors? It's a great point, and I think it is the point that potentially could save the future of the Pac-12 for Oregon State and Washington State. And this truly is, and I know we throw around a lot of terminology and big words in sports. This is an existential crisis, as it was written in the documents in court today. What does that mean? It's a crisis of existence. If Washington State and Oregon State lose this court battle, the Pac-12 is dead. They will melt it down and split all of the remaining assets and shares, cash and otherwise, between all 12 members, and that's a huge loss for Washington State and Oregon State, who are, as we also reported on the show, in negotiations for a merger with the Mountain West, and the money that remains in the Pac-12 coffers could provide a soft landing, and a soft landing is needed because Oregon State and Washington State, should they merge with the Mountain West in whatever form or fashion, will be taking what some are estimating to be a $15 to $20 million annual write-down. And Jake, if they don't get this money out of the Pac-12, I don't see how Oregon State and Washington State can survive.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes it difficult. I think Oregon State can survive on playoff money. I think that, you can find a way to regularly win the Mountain West, but Washington State's kind of a different situation. I mean, that's not a team that, on the football field has been in any kind of danger of winning the Pac-12 anytime recently. And I think that's sort of the challenge here is like Kirk Schultz is obviously trying to play this game, and I think it's a really smart play out of a guy who's done some pretty, mediocre businessing, if you will. And I think Kirk Schultz needs to understand that, if you're going to start filing paperwork on other institutions, they're probably going to fight back. They're probably going to bounce back. And I think that's one of my personal biggest questions on this. Like, if you're the other 10 schools and you're looking at this, you're saying, okay, they're trying to seize power because obviously they didn't get their landing spot in a new conference. What exactly do we do about this? Is this a situation where, if you're Oregon and Washington or SC and UCLA or whoever you are, that, when you got into the Big 10 or the Big 12, if you're any of those schools, are you saying, yeah, we're not going to fight this, let them have their stake? Or are you saying, hey, we believe we're entitled to X, Y, and Z based on bylaws and situations in the paperwork for the conference, and we're going to fight you on it? I mean, I think that really is sort of this looming question for me, because if the Pac-12 is going to fight itself and we're going to go to blows over how to dissolve the conference, if you will, I still think that's a pretty bad look, even for the schools that got into a new conference. So I guess I don't know exactly how this is going to play itself out. Obviously, Schultz makes a great point. Hey, if you've left a conference, the bylaws say that automatically means you're off the board, can't make decisions, basically removes you from any type of powers. So that's what I think the big question is. Are these schools going to fight, or are these schools just going to say, yep, that's in our past, we're moving forward?
Well, I definitely think they're going to fight. And I think what is so interesting about this filing today was it was not filed against the remaining or the exiting members, these 10 universities that are leaving the conference. It was filed against George Kliavkoff and those 10 members. And I think that's significant because I have to believe on some level the malfeasance and the incompetence of George Kliavkoff that we've talked about for the better part of 18 months now is going to play a role in this case. And frankly, friends, I don't know how it could not, because his leadership and his guidance through this process and those 10 members, we know about Arizona State President Michael Crow, who roundly and loudly supported George Kliavkoff and Larry Scott before him. That certainly damaged Oregon State and Washington State. And I think that support, and I think we've reported for a significant number of months here that Oregon State was looking for a way out. Even after the Four Corners School went to the Big 12, Oregon State was aggressively calling the Big 12 and the Big 10 to no avail, but they knew they were in trouble. They've exhausted all of their efforts. I think that's the other thing that is so clear here is that Oregon State and Washington State are in a position where they know they don't have other options. This is it. This is their last salvo. If they do not get this temporary restraining order, there will be a Pac-12 Board of Directors meeting next week, and I believe it's scheduled for Wednesday, where the 12 members will vote on how to divide the assets in the conference. That's why this restraining order is being filed now, because in the notes to the members of the conference, a vote was written into the notes saying, hey, we're going to vote on how to divide these assets. I think that's exactly why Kirk Schultz at Washington State and the folks at Oregon State got so aggressive and filed a restraining order application against these 10 schools, because if you're those 10 schools, I have no doubt they want to take every penny that they can out of this conference because, after all, haven't these 10 schools suffered from a lack of revenue based on a terrible TV situation over the last decade? And certainly they have. And the other thing that they've suffered from is no college football playoff appearances, rarities of deep playoff runs even to get close. You look at Utah the last 2 years, the back-to-back Pac-12 conference champions never had a chance to get into the college football playoff. That doesn't even include the lackluster basketball performance. I mean, the money that has not been made in this conference is shocking. From TV to on-court and on-field performance, it is shocking. The hundreds and hundreds and millions of dollars that have been left on the table here because you have not performed, because you don't have a TV deal, because you don't have distribution, because you don't have television partners and core ad partners across the conference. That's a real problem. And I think that's why this lawsuit is so pertinent today.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about that board of directors meeting, I mean, you're talking about a play here from Kirk Schultz and Oregon State where they're basically trying to say, okay, we want it just to be us at the board of directors meeting, just Washington State and Oregon State.
Yes.
We'll work together and we'll find our way. You know, the percentages, obviously this is easy math, right? Splitting something between two people is a lot different than splitting something between 12 people, right? So if you're Kirk Schultz and you're Oregon State, I sit here and I say, I love this play, but I also hate this play on some level because it is true. It is your only play. You don't have anything else. And I don't know what your future looks like if you don't make this happen, to which I say it's probably true. The other 10 schools are probably going to fight you on it because it's money, and when money's involved, everyone gets selfish really quick.
That's right.
So I just think that it's a tough situation, but I would expect nothing less of Washington State and Oregon State given their position.
Well, and I think one of the really interesting answers that we will get within the next few days here how much control does George Kliavkoff have in this conference today? Because our sources have told us, and we've told you for weeks, George Kliavkoff has no sway or input on what the future direction of the Pac-12 is. And to that I say where Oregon State and Washington State are going. That's why they hired Oliver Luck. But George Kliavkoff has had a significant impact on how this conference got there. And I think that's why they named him directly as the commissioner and as somebody that really impacted the bottom lines.
And as somebody who shouldn't be at the table, someone who shouldn't have a voice in the room.
I agree with that. And, you know, the funny thing is we're arguing over the future and going forward. A lot of people want to talk about the debt load and the Comcast debt, and that's all under contract. That is all out in black and white. The grant of rights and the conference charter that expires on June 30th has specific stipulations and language in it, we have been told, that says, hey, you sign this grant of rights and this charter to be a member of the Pac-12, you are responsible by the letter of this contract. You are responsible for the debts that have been incurred. You are responsible for the liabilities that have been incurred. That contract does not, I am told, specifically stipulate that exiting members of the conference have any claim to the assets, cash, and equipment that remain behind in the Pac-12. And I think one of the points that our sources have told us so passionately about, excuse me, is that the infrastructure investments all 12 of these universities made over the last 3 years to get out of downtown San Francisco, to build a production facility in the East Bay, San Francisco, in San Ramon, California, have been tens of millions of dollars per university. And I think that is where the argument is going to be made. And the problem is it was never put into contractual language that said, hey, if we leave, we get X, Y, and Z. I am told by sources in the conference that language does not exist anywhere. That in the conference charter, all that it says is the remaining cash and assets belong to the members of the conference. And right now, what Oregon State and Washington State are going to court for, if we're going to break this down in simple terms, it was explained to me what Oregon State and Washington State are asking a judge to do is to say, hey, the remaining 10 members of this conference outside of Oregon State and Washington State, these 10 that are leaving, you're not members of the conference going forward. Therefore, you have no voting interest in what happens to the assets and cash of the conference.
And, of course, those same schools are going to say, hey, well, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but the problem is what you just said. Hey, we did make infrastructure investments. We have skin in the game here. And I think this is the tug of war, if you will, right? Obviously, again, it goes without saying that the idea that Washington State and Oregon State are on the outside looking in of conference realignment is why they're having to do this. Again, you notice that this isn't coming from schools that have a home. And I think
no, it's not.
That's the tough part is like, hey, this is a classic battle of have versus have not.
That's right.
And again, I've espoused all week and the last month and several months actually about how much I respect Oregon State and Scott Barnes and what they're doing up there. I love what they're doing up there. But the reality of the situation is there's still improvements that need to be made in branding because you're a have-not right now. That's
Correct.
The reality.
Correct.
And so if we're going to sit here and we're going to try to have some legal debate about, hey, who's a member and who's not, the reality of the situation is the conference is dying. The grant of rights is expiring. So that's where I think you're going to run into trouble because even though those schools left, the grant of rights is expiring. That's why they left. So Oregon State and Washington State, you're not going to be a member either.
But I think what they're hanging on to is the NCAA bylaw that says if you fall below a certain the level is 8. Mm-hmm. If your conference falls below that number 8 universities in your conference, you have 2 years to get back above that 8. And in that 2 years, you keep your A5 status, which means you keep your Power 5, you keep your major conference standing. So I think what these remaining 2 versus those exiting 10, what the remaining 2, Oregon State and Washington State, are trying to do is to keep these 10 members from taking their brand. I think that's what we're really fighting over, because the cash and the physical assets are one thing. Think of this as a divorce, right? Yes, you are dissolving this marriage as you know it. But, you know, when you get remarried, you're still the Montys, right? You're just a new version of the Montys. When the Pac-12 gets remarried to the Mountain West, they're still going to be the Pac-12. And they have 2 years, by the letter of the law, they have 2 years to add those universities. I think what you're going to see is that once this, and I believe the temporary restraining order will be granted. Based on sources I've talked to, I think they have a very good case. The charter, the grant of rights, the NCAA bylaws all favor Washington State and Oregon State in this fight. I believe a judge will issue that TRO. And there really is no reason not to. That's the other thing I think a lot of people forget. There is no reason not to. It's a temporary restraining order. It does not go on in perpetuity. It does not go on forever. A judge is basically going to say, hey, Pac-12, George Kliavkoff and you 10 exiting members, you cannot have a board meeting.
Yeah.
Because at this time, we need to have the argument, are you still on the board? Is George Kliavkoff still in control? Because Oliver Luck, and this was explained to me as well, Oliver Luck basically slid into this new Pac-2 as its commissioner.
Here's what's going to happen, Tonto.
And is guiding Oregon State and Washington State, and really kind of not working with the remaining 10 members.
Right.
So there's going to be a fight about whether or not the conference still exists. And the bylaws, the charter, the grant of rights all say it does. So I think Oregon State and Washington State have a very, very good chance to get the temporary restraining order and then go on and win the actual legal battle. Because the TRO, the temporary restraining order that Oregon State and Washington State are asking for, is not a final thing. It's okay, everybody freeze, let's go to court and punch each other in the face.
Yeah.
Really, it's, hey, let's go to court and make lawyers a bunch of money. It's not indifferent to any other divorce proceeding, because that's what this is.
I knew today would be shitty.
Yeah, that's what today is. Cut a check. Cut a check.
Yeah.
Because your lawyers are going to get paid.
Yeah, and I just think that the hard part is like, yeah, or the other factor, I guess, is that we've never seen this before. I mean, I don't feel like we've ever really, like, we've obviously seen, like, exit fee disputes, right? We've obviously seen, you know, the way Texas and Oklahoma were handled, or you know, other situations, if you will. But we've never been in a place where a conference has essentially fallen apart, and we have to decide how exactly we're going to handle that.
Yes.
I mean, to your point, right? The bylaws, the NCAA statutes, they all say, hey, you got 2 years. The conference still exists, like you're fine, but you got to figure it out. And on the other hand, we've never been here. There's gray area. We don't know.
A lot of gray area.
We don't know what the right, quote unquote, the right thing to do here is. Yes, do they have a case for a temporary restraining order to pause things? Yes, sure, they do. But what's going to happen when the big boys roll in the room? Again, haves versus have-nots. When the big boys roll into the room and say, yeah, you know, yeah, Kirk, you didn't really do too much as someone who was sitting on our board of directors. You didn't really do too much to get us a TV deal. You didn't really, like, that's going to be the fight. Who we're basically trying to define fault here to decide what the play is and who should get control of the remaining assets. Right. If it is determined that, hey, Washington State and Oregon State couldn't have done anything differently, they couldn't have done more, you know, they couldn't have acted differently, then they're going to win this.
You know what this reminds me of? You don't remember this movie. When Harry Met Sally. And there's a scene in the movie where Harry and Sally are really close to having, like, serious relationship. They're having an argument. And in the movie, the character Harry says, well, you better write your name in the book, because when it comes time to play that's mine, this is yours, it makes it a hell of a lot easier.
And go ahead and try me then.
Yeah.
Did you write your name on that TV truck, sir?
Pause, bro. Pause.
Yeah, it says Kirk Schultz's TV truck. That's where we are in college football realignment.
Yeah, and again,
that is where we are.
Kirk Schultz has taken a lot of heat on this showroom, but this is a move that I think he had to make. I don't think there was much choice
I
in
think this is a very pragmatic play. It's his only play. Yeah. It is Oregon State and Washington State's only play.
Yeah.
That's it. There's not a lot of, well, maybe we can, just sell extra Girl Scout cookies this year. There's no selling extra Girl Scout cookies.
No.
We're talking about tens of millions of dollars a year lost by each one of these Washington State and Oregon State universities.
That's an issue.
If you think about, they're making 24, I think they each got $24 million in media distribution alone. You're talking about, when it's all said and done, you're probably talking about $40 million a school.
No.
They're fighting for their ability to pay for sports right now. Right now.
And make no mistake about it. I've seen some people on Twitter the last few days talking about, oh, well, this is about the existence of the university. No, it's not. This is a sports issue. This has nothing to do with academics. Like, don't blow this thing out of proportion.
Yeah, I don't. They're not. Oregon State's not going out of business as an institution.
Yeah.
Come on now. I think there are real reservations about how many sports Washington State will be able to offer if they lose this situation.
Yeah.
If they do not get a significant bump in the payout and the assets and the cash of the Pac-12, I think you are going to have to stop participating in probably a half dozen sports at Washington State University. They're insolvent athletically. They don't have it. And if you go from $24 million in media distribution to $4 million in the Mountain West or the new Pac-12, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So this is a huge fight. And it's interesting, the Monty Show presented by The Advocates. TheAdvocates.com, the best injury attorneys in the business. Hey, man, if you've been injured, make sure you get to TheAdvocates.com. You can chat with an attorney right now, live online, and you don't pay a penny to do it. There's no obligation. All you're going to get is the best legal advice, and you're not going to pay out of pocket for it. That's the bottom line at The Advocates. You don't pay The Advocates unless and until they win your case. And at the end of the day, you never pay The Advocates. They pay you at theadvocates.com. All right, let's get your comments in here. Again, you guys, it's Friday, huge week on the show. I want to say thank you very much. We blew past 33,000 subscribers. Indeed, let's go. You guys are freaking amazing. We are at 33,330.
Let's go, baby.
We are just, you guys, what is that, 16,000 and change, 16,600 away from 50,000.
Wild.
I know that seems like an enormous amount of subscribers. It's not. If every one of you watching this show, if all 800 of you would hit the like button right now, if every one of you would hit the like button right now, that would really help us. I appreciate you spending time with us every day. Hit the like button. If you are not subscribed, please consider doing so.
By the way, quick sidebar. How many of you watch on TV? Watch the showroom on a TV?
Yes. Yeah, I know a lot of you do. How about my guy, OG Gary, sending us a picture of his brand new TV? Do we have it uploaded? We probably don't.
No, we don't.
But Gary sent us a picture of his brand new TV, his feet up on the coffee table, and the Monty Show on the TV.
Yeah,
I love it. 75-inch TV.
Power.
I love it. Big shout out to Kyle A, who gifted a membership today.
Let's go, baby.
We like to call it Free Membership Friday on the Monty Show. For $1.99, you can get all your comments highlighted and read. We always read our member comments first. For $9.99, you get access to our members-only Instagram chat, which, by the way, was awesome during the football game last night.
Yeah,
the Chiefs-Lions game, as Jake was melting down, Jared Goff missed his, what would you call that? Parlay? Jake's whole existence last night was the 7 yards. The 7 yards that Jared Goff did not get for the Detroit Lions last night. Jake lost a parlay on that. Congratulations, Jake.
Yeah, I needed Jared Goff last night to have 261 yards passing. My guy over here threw for 253. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
7 yards.
I know Kadarius Toney isn't on your team, but maybe you could have completed a couple more passes last night.
Yeah, hysterical. I see a lot of you asking if we're going to talk football games today. Yeah, throw your team in the chat. Tell us what your team is, who's their game, and we'll give you our opinion on it. Absolutely. We will absolutely talk Bama, Texas, Oregon Tech, Nebraska, Colorado, and Baylor and Utah. Those 4 games. Huge implication.
Do you believe?
What's up, LV Seminole? A member for 6 months.
Okay.
Let's go, LV. Good to see you, my guy. He says, congrats on the sub milestone, fellas. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate that. Cleveland Rocks gives us $5. As Dion has shocked the college world, so too will the Browns shock the NFL all the way to the Super Bowl in Vegas. Yeah, I mean, free washcloths for everybody. It's going to be unreal.
Juicy.
Free washcloths for everyone, bro.
Come on, Deshaun. You're not going to the Super Bowl.
Hiscock.
I would like to tell you that DTR, that's the quarterback. When this Browns team wins the Super Bowl, it's probably going to be with DTR.
Yeah.
Not going to be with 100% guaranteed washcloth man. Okay. Delaric's been a member for 6 months. Let's go. Delaric, let's go, Delaric. Good to see you. Appreciate that. AJM for $2. Are they also liable for the large debts as well? All 12 members are, and most people are talking about Comcast. You'll remember that there was an overpayment that went unreported. There are lawsuits over this. The story goes that supposedly,
allegedly,
members of the Pac-12 management staff knew Comcast was overpaying the Pac-12 for carriage fees. They knew that. They thought they were being underpaid by Comcast, the Pac-12 did. So they reportedly had an audit done. The audit revealed, the internal audit by the Pac-12 revealed Comcast was not underpaying. In fact, they were overpaying.
Mm-hmm.
The Pac-12 allegedly said nothing to Comcast. And so the overpayments continued to the tune of about $70 million. That debt has already been started to be paid off because Comcast is not paying the Pac-12 carriage fees until that $70 million is level. So if we get to the end of this year, most of that $70 million will be repaid. But the remaining balance on that, there is a lawsuit from the Holiday Bowl for the COVID year. UCLA pulled out of the Holiday Bowl. I think it was the Wednesday before, if memory serves, very close to the game day because of COVID situations. They pulled out. They did not play the Holiday Bowl. The Holiday Bowl is suing the Pac-12, all of its members, specifically UCLA. There is that situation. That is during this grant of rights, during this charter period.
Back 10.
They are going to have to, all 12 members, make that situation whole, whether they win, they lose, whatever that winds up being. Those are the 2 major incidents that are hanging around, but there's also the Nick Rolovich situation. There is also the lawsuits from former employees of the conference.
So this is what I think is interesting. You have all these situations, right?
Yes.
So if Kirk Schultz and Oregon State are going to come out here and start filing paperwork and court proceedings on assets, hey, who's got a controlling interest? How do we divide all this?
Right.
Like, how does that process play out? If I'm the other 10, I'm bringing this stuff up. I'm like,
absolutely.
Okay, dude, if you're not going to give us, if we don't have access to the assets, then we don't have liability for the Holiday Bowl or otherwise, or Comcast or whatever the case may be, right? Like, that would be my sort of get back. That would be my answer to, okay, sure. You don't want us to have access. You don't want us to be on the board of directors. You don't want us at the meeting. You want it to be you in Oregon State deciding where the money goes and how it's all hammered out. That's great. But if you're going to pray for rain, you got to get the mud too, right? So they should be responsible on their own for the Holiday Bowl, for the Comcast overpayments, for resolving the Rolovich situation, if you will. Like, that's what I think individuals like Kirk Schultz maybe don't measure as much when they think about, okay, we're going to go on offense here. We're going to file some restraining orders and, try to pause things so we can go and argue how things are going to get, figured out. Oh, that's right. But if you're going to play that game, the other 10 schools are going to play that game too. And they're not stupid. right? Like Stanford's on the hook here, right? Like Cal's
Yeah.
on the hook, UCLA's on like schools that have debt are on the hook too.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not going to be as easy as, well, we're Washington State and Oregon State and we're victims and we want a restraining order. It's not that simple.
But I'd also like to point out that when you pray for rain, you have to deal with the mud too.
That's right. That's right. You
God
like that?
damn, boy.
I'm for real.
I'm
you
proud
like
of that.
bro?
I'm for
Hey,
real.
man, you're going to pray for rain. You got to deal with the mud too.
That's right, dude.
That was amazing.
My boy Denzel Washington with the great quote.
Listen, I don't know. Do you guys think you have enough butter for the toast? I mean,
Hey, no,
let's
reset.
just talk about it.
Yeah, dude.
Still one of the greatest lines ever dropped in an interview.
That's right.
When we had Mountain West Commissioner Gloria Navarez on, Jake earlier in that show rolled out, hey, do you think there's enough butter for all the toast? Just out of nowhere. So, of course, I asked Gloria Navarez that same question. Hero 75 for $10. The key will be what happens when USC and UCLA announced when they left the PAC last year. Were they still on the voting board? No, they were immediately removed from the Pac-12 Board of Directors. Did they get paid out for the share of investments they had put in? Well, no, because when you make an investment under contract and you don't break that contract, there is no payout to be had.
Yeah.
The thing, don't forget how this is set up. None of these 10 members that are leaving the conference are leaving early. They are all waiting for the grant of rights to expire, and then they are signing a new grant of rights in a different conference. It's not like Texas and Oklahoma who paid the Big 12 to leave early. That's not what this is. This is 10 members saying, we're not signing a new TV deal, a new grant of rights. We're going to the Big 10. We're going to the Big 12. We're going to the ACC.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
So this is very different than any other situation we've seen because there is no contract after June 30th in less than 6 months now.
So this is my point. If these institutions aren't leaving early, right, they're leaving in a proper fashion.
Right.
The play of, hey, we want a temporary restraining order to pause things. I think that's a great way to explain it. Hey, we want to pause motion here so we can discuss how things actually need to be played out properly. There's a problem with that take because, again, no crime, if you will, has been committed here.
That's right.
These institutions are free agents. So if you're going to take legal action like this, I agree it's his only play, but at the same time, you're taking huge risk.
Wow, look at this from Ross Dellinger, who says, according to the Pac-12 Constitution and bylaws, if a member school gives notice of withdrawal, they automatically cease to be a member of the Pac-12 Board of Directors. Therefore, Oregon State and Washington State now constitute the entire membership of the Pac-12 Board of Directors. Listen, not only are we good looking, okay, not only are we good looking, but we're always right. We're always right. Just ask us, we'll tell you. But again, another national media member, Ross Dellinger, one of the leading college sports voices in this country, Ross Dellinger, backing up what we said. And as our sources told us, the charter, as it was described to me, says that when you leave, you're out.
Yeah.
When you announce you're out, you're out. You're out. You don't have any other say. And as we've reported on the show for over a month now, George Kliavkoff is in charge of one thing. What's happening this calendar year up through June 30th? Done.
Yeah.
He is not in any conversations. He has not been asked his opinion about what to do going forward. None of that. None of that. So, again, I feel pretty good about what we've told you. I think we have been nails on realignment. I think we have really well-placed sources in this conference. And the belief is that Oregon State and Washington State will win their temporary restraining order. And I think that's exactly what should happen here because I don't see that anybody else has a case. I truly do not. Shout out to Delaric, who's been a member for 6 months. Let's go, Delaric.
Let's go, baby.
Appreciate you. Shout out to OG Gary, who's been a member for 6
Yeah, and
months.
he's got 75 inches of power.
He says, Utah, Oregon, Texas win. Y'all look good in 8K. Appreciate you, my
All
guy.
gas, no break.
Badass 377 gives us $5. Feel like an opportunity for the Mountain West schools to shake things up with the Pac-12 brand because let's be honest, just staying put as the Mountain West does nothing. Well, and I would also remind you what we said on the show yesterday the Mountain West and the Pac-12 members are talking about a merger. And Scott Barnes as much confirmed that publicly today, where he said that they have had really good talks with the Mountain West about a relationship going forward. But the thing I want to continue to emphasize, this battle within the Pac-12, that's what's holding this move up. Because if you're the Mountain West, you can't merge with the Pac-12 not knowing what the finances are. Because I think this is just one battle for Oregon State and Washington State. What's the other battle? I think the other battle is how much of the money that you're going to retain is going to go to the Mountain West members. I think that is the next battle on the horizon. And I think the Mountain West and its memberships is well aware that Oregon State and Washington State don't have another ship to board. There is no place to go here. You have got to make a deal with the Mountain West. And frankly, I think the Mountain West wants that. I think they want more competition. I think they recognize that if they add Washington State and Oregon State, a rising tide raises all ships. Those two universities, you're going to find out in the next 4 months, I guess, 3-4 months. Washington State and Oregon State are actually pretty good on the football field.
Facts.
Regardless of what their management is doing. They're going to win some football games. And I think DJ Uiagalelei and Cam Ward are two of the better quarterbacks in this league. And I think we're finding out that there's money to be made in bowl season when you have good quarterbacks. I think the Mountain West is better with Oregon State and Washington State, and I think they know that. But everybody wants their slice of the pie. Yeah. Everybody's going to come into this new Pac-12 with their hand out, and they're going to expect some coins in their palm. And I think that's the next fight for these two universities, and we'll find out how that plays. But is this just not stunning, shocking? Somebody said to me yesterday in the comment section, clickbait title. What else do you want me to call it? Monty was right again? Hey, Monty.
Ain't no reset.
Yeah, it's shocking to me that we're talking about 10 really intelligent individual presidents thinking that they are entitled to something that contractually they know they are not. It's striking. It's remarkable, stunning, shocking. I cannot believe how taken for granted Oregon State has become in this conversation. No, who's looking out for Oregon State? Well, Oregon State is, and nobody else is.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just the way the world works. I don't know. But again, it is stunning to me.
Yeah.
It is absolutely stunning to me. Shaner, what's up? U of A Shaner, good to see you. We will find out if the judge in the last Pac-12 lawsuit went to one of the 12 schools. Yeah, maybe. Maybe, I don't know. This was filed up in Washington State, near Pullman, which is not unexpected because that's where the University of Washington State University is. I think who's going to hear this. And I think it's home court advantage. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And I think we've all had far, far too much experience with lawsuits, massive lawsuits lately in this country. But this one, that term that was thrown at me, existential crisis, the literal definition is crisis of existence. This is an existential crisis.
Yeah.
This will determine if the Pac-12 lives on or dies right here in front of us.
Yeah.
And I, for one, hope it lives on. It is still, it's never going to be the same. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything or BS you. That's not how we roll on this show. But it is shocking that we're here. The Pac-12 is one of the great American sports tragedies we've ever experienced. There's no way that this conference should have folded.
No way.
There is no way it should have been so utterly mismanaged. Beyond, you couldn't write a script to be this terrible at managing a conference.
How dumb do you think I am?
The officiating, like lawyers in the officiating booth calling down and talking, like you couldn't.
Are you out of your goddamn mind?
You couldn't even write that script of incompetence.
Yeah, man.
Yet here we are. Here we are. And I it's odd. It is odd. Again, it is odd. I'm rooting for Kirk Schultz, Washington State, to pull this thing out. I'm rooting for Oregon State to pull this thing out.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I want this conference to survive. As Pac-12 fans, you deserve better. You deserve better. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm a long-suffering Notre Dame fan. So, hey, We're always
it's garbage.
We're always going to kick the crap out of the men of Troy. Fight off, right?
Notre Dame Armada.
They pray for us because we're going to need it. Marcus
Right.
Freeman ain't that dude.
Right.
But I'm telling you, this conference should have been the best conference ever created. And instead, it's the laughingstock of all of college sports history.
Yeah.
It's absolutely remarkable.
Yep.
And I don't know how you fix it. Let's see. Let's get some of your comments in here because you guys, we already have over 1,000 comments on the show today. The PAC-thetic conference, Tarrant County, SMU, boy.
Tarrant County, boy.
Appreciate you, sir. Good to see you. Conference Commissioner Gumby says, pause, bro.
Yeah,
pause.
Dude. Yeah, bro. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. That's all they're trying to do. They want to slow play this thing and find their way around the, existential crisis.
Yeah, existential crisis. Let's see. Tarrant County boy says OSU has the Brinks trucks.
They do?
You think so? I mean, they've Research Stadium's going to be lit this year. Mike Smith. Hey, Mike. Good to see you, man. Happy Friday. They pissed off Beavers and Cougs. Now they have angry Beavers and angry Cougars. Me freaking yow. Meow. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I was going to make a terrible joke. Kurt Peters, Schultz strategy is if I lick it, it's mine. Really? No, that's not out. That's not it. Dale Donut says, awesome, Mike Smith. Conference Commissioner Gumby says 75 inches of power. Pause, bro.
Can you measure it?
Hey, some of us are luckier than others.
Yeah.
Jimmy Otson. Jimmy. Good to see you, my guy.
Jimmy.
Nothing worse than dealing with mad Cougars with angry Beavers. Exactly
You ought to know.
right.
You bought it.
Exactly right. Let's see. Dr. 520 says Auburn and Cal. Love Cal in that game. I almost put some of the Monty Show ducats on that game.
Hey, Monty.
And I think can Cal win every game? No. Wilcox ain't that guy, the head coach. But I feel like Auburn being a 6-point favorite in Berkeley screams to bet on Cal.
Yeah.
At 54.5, you got to take California. Put your ducats on, and I would never. In spirit, you're a California Golden Bear, man. I don't know what they're.
As you can see, there's not much hope for you left.
I have no idea. I don't know what their fight song is. Shooter, Texas. Monty, we always right. Also, Monty, Cal and Stanford are definitely. Who said Cal and Stanford are definitely going to the Big Ten? I said I never said that. Never said they were definitely going. It just makes too much sense. Circa July, never said that. What I said was Cal and Stanford were in the conversation. There is no question about that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it came down to one decision. Do you want to be at 20 now, or do you want to be at 20 in 3 to 5 years?